Evening, everyone.
Hi, Jan.
Evening.
Hello, everyone.
Oh,
Hola.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Pam.
what you have to say about this fried ribs?
Quiet group this evening.
Hey there, everyone.
Evening.
Hi, Danielle. Nice meeting you. We'll get started at 6:35.
Hi, everyone.
Jeff, do we have any absent school board directors?
No one that told us. I counted 6 so far attending. So no one
Spoke to Mr. Wright. Can you hear me, Jen?
Yep.
I spoke to Mr. Wright later in the afternoon. I don't think he's coming or joining.
Okie dokie.
Jeff, I count 7.
Okay, well, someone jumped on. I apologize. Okay, someone else jumped on. All righty, got it. Got it.
Jeff's got his flag ready.
Mhm.
I found something fun online. Gotta use it, you know?
Trying to get all my windows arranged. All right, here we go, folks. First, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Can't stand up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands,
Stands.
one nation under God,
indivisible,
Liberty and
liberty and
justice for all.
justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
There you go. All right, Mr. Cuff, you have the roll call?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, before we get to our agenda, Dr. B. Coates is going to make a presentation on what September may look like. Over to you, Mr. B. Coates. Dr. B. Coates.
All right, now I actually want to start. Did you want me to do that one first or the entry plan update? Because on the agenda it has the entry plan update first.
I'm sorry?
I said on the agenda it has entry plan update first. So am I doing that one first?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay. All right, I'm going to follow.
Are those links in the chat?
Yes, they are.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
All attendees, you can see the links in the chat.
All right, Jeff, you're going to allow me to share my screen?
I think you should. Can you not?
All righty, let's see.
There you go.
All righty. Thank you. Good evening, board members. As most of you probably will recall, one of the things that I said that I would do is develop an entry plan upon my entry into the district. So what this shows you here is the actual letter as a reminder that I provided to the entire community as it related to my entry plan. The entry plan is titled Focus Forward, Listen, Learn, and Lead. In the plan, I provided a purpose, an overview, as well as a timeline. And what I wanted to do was bring you back to the timeline because in the timeline, it specifically stated that in June of 2020, I would begin monthly updates to the board of directors. And so that brings us to this evening, and that's what I'm going to share with you right now, where we are as it relates to the successful implementation of the entry plan. So as it relates to distribution, in early May, prior to me actually coming on board in the district, I did share the entry plan with our board members. We had conversations about it and feedback was provided, and I say thank you very much for that. On May 15th, the plan was provided to senior leadership team members as well as principals via email. All district staff received it on May 18th, along with the William Penn School community. There were 3 phases of the plan. One was cohesiveness, the second one was opportunities for academic excellence, and the third was efficiency and effectiveness. The first phase really just dealt with, or deals with, if you will, developing relationships with the board, superintendent, and community relations, whereas the second one focuses on academic programming, professional development, and the third focus on operations to effectively support and serve our schools. The number behind each one of the phases represents the number of actual action items within each phase. So in phase 1, there are 11 action items. In phase 2, there are 6. And in phase 3, there are 5. So what has been done to date? There are a total of 22 action items. 15 have been completed or / they're in process, meaning that some work has been done toward completing the actual action item, resulting in a completion rate of about 68%. So if you look at the actual phases, that means 10 of the 11 in the phase 1, 3 of 6 in phase 2, and 3 of 5 in phase 3. The highlights thus far. I must say I have had an opportunity to meet with every school staff in the district. We actually had Zoom meetings. And I want to thank the teachers for their open candor and their willingness to work toward improving outcomes for students. The meetings were very engaging, and they gave me a lot of food for thought, if you will. So I just want to thank all of the teachers. I've completed all schools to date. I've also had an opportunity to meet with the president of the Delaware County Community College. Great meeting, looking forward to continuing the partnership and definitely enhancing it where we can. Had the opportunity to also meet with cabinet members to better understand how we operate as a school district. There have been several meetings with elected officials. 4 of them are scheduled later in this week. And then I've also had an opportunity to conduct an interview on NBC6. So these are some of the highlights that I would like to bring to the attention of the board. And at this point, just want to open it up for questions or answers that I might be able to provide or any discussion at this point.
Great. Board members, do you have any questions? And Dr. Becoats, I apologize for the rough introduction. I was multitasking.
No problem at all.
Any board members have any questions? Okay. And you'll notice me resharing the links with Zoom. If you do not, if you come in at different times, you don't see what happened before. Okay, Miss Lewis, can you unmute Miss Lewis, Mr. Cuff? Go ahead, Miss Lewis.
Hello, everyone. Athea Lewis here, Yaden, Pennsylvania. Yaden, yeah, we're in Pennsylvania. But I was just wanted to have a quick question for you, Mr. Becoats. When, Dr. Becoats, when are we? Is there a plan to meet with parents in a Zoom meeting?
Yes, ma'am. That has not been scheduled as of yet, but we will be doing that probably shortly after we get an approved reopening schedule or reopening plan for the district. So yes, is the short answer.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you, Miss Lewis. Jeff, can you unmute Miss Vandenberg, please? Miss Vandenberg, go ahead. Becky? You can talk now.
Looks like she's muted.
Yep.
All right, I'm unmuted.
Okay. There
Lisa
you go.
Bates and I would like to thank Dr. Becoats. He invited us to every single one of the school building meetings, and we attended every meeting with him and listened in. And it was very helpful for us and for the union to know what's going on in the buildings. And he also had a separate meeting with Lisa and I, so we could start to get to know each other and try to work together. So that was, we're very appreciative.
Great. Thank you, Miss Vandenberg. Any other attendees want to speak? Just raise your hand. All right. If you think of any as we go, there'll be other opportunities to speak. Go ahead, Mr. Becoats, Dr. Becoats.
All right, we're going to transition to the reopening of schools, and I am going to share my screen. I love it when technology works. This is, and I'm entitling this a framework for learning, the William Penn School District response to COVID-19. And so this evening, I want to share with board members as well as our community what progress we have made to date. Most of you know that the governor issued a reopening guidelines. And what I want to do is share with you some of the aspects of those guidelines, and I'll go into more detail as it actually comes up here. And because it is a lengthy document, I just wanted the public to understand and to see that there are various components of this reopening plan. It speaks to health and safety. It also speaks to a phased reopening. And then most of us know that there are specific color designations, if you will, that the county may be in. Currently, we are in the yellow phase, and I will highlight what that actually means for us as a school district, and then provide some information as it relates to the green phase as well. Also in this document, which is a link in the presentation, it provides for you the health and safety plan considerations that should be taken into account as a school district. So I wanted everyone to see that information so that you have it there. But this evening, what I will be doing is providing a highlight. So if you go to the background section of the actual presentation, what you will, oops, sorry about that, guys. Something disappeared on me. Hold on 1 second. All right. Does everyone still see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So the governor's guidance was provided, as I said, June 3rd. And in that guidance, it basically talked to or speaks to the fact that the schools will be open in September. And some of the things that are indicated in that document states that we want to maximize educational opportunities where we can, but also mitigate the spread of the disease. Additional guidance will be provided to us in about 3 weeks related to these actual guidelines, if you will. I talked about the 3 phases of the reopening: red, yellow, and green. Again, we're right now in yellow. It does allow for schools to reopen after July 1. We are not recommending that schools open before the scheduled date in September at this point, because there's lots of work that needs to be done between now and that point. And when you're in the green phase, we can actually reopen with social distancing as well as limitations on large gatherings. One of the things that is highlighted by the CDC are various conditions for resuming in-person instruction. And there's a school's decision tree that the CDC provides for school districts. And so when you look in this first column here, it speaks to should we consider or should you consider opening? And there are 3 key things that are brought up. Will reopening be consistent with applicable state and local orders? Is the school ready to protect children and employees at higher risk for severe illness? And are you able to screen students and employees upon arrival for symptoms and history of exposure? If you answer no to any of those questions, the CDC recommends that we do not open, keeping in mind that the governor said that schools will open in September. So there's a significant amount of work that we will be embarking upon over the next couple of weeks to ensure that we're able to meet these guidelines, if you will, as well as the other guidelines in this actual chart that you see before you. But again, I wanted to share that information because this is something that we will be utilizing as we go throughout the decision-making process. The governor's guidance also requires us to identify a pandemic coordinator, and the new director of student services will be serving in that role, and her name is Danielle Seward. We also have identified the pandemic committee, and I will highlight that for you in a moment. And I will provide you information as it relates to our progress on the health and safety plan. The health and safety plan has various components. And some of those components are basically highlighted here. And I wanted to highlight just some of these for you that we will be addressing within our health and safety plan. Things related to cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting, social distancing, the monitoring of health, as well as facilities cleaning and social distancing and other safety protocols. So these are the guidelines that the state has already provided that we are required to follow and provide an update on, if you will, in reference to our health and safety plan. I think it's important for the board to know that this is something that the board of directors will be responsible for taking action on and approving before we're actually able to move forward. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, what about athletics? Well, on June the 10th, specific guidance was given as it relates to academics. And I thought that I was going to be able to scroll down, and I guess my screen is moving a little bit fast. I wanted to highlight for you what some of the guidance is around pre-K-12 school sports. And so one of the items that's really interesting to me that I'm highlighting here speaks to the fact that any sports related activities in yellow or green, we have to adhere to gathering limitations. It's 25 in yellow and 250 if we get to green. And I will share with you now that the expectation of the thinking is that we will be in green before September. The other thing to mention to you is that when you look at the yellow and green phases of reopening, sports-related activities at the pre-K-12 level will be limited to student athletes, coaches, officials, and staff only. The addition of visitors and spectators will be contingent upon future health conditions within the state as well as within local communities. So again, this is another piece of guidance that we have received, and that was received on June the 10th. Keep in mind that we continue to get updates on a daily basis. So on June the 11th, we actually received this documentation from the Delaware County Council and the Chester County Health Department. And it again provides us with some guidance as it relates to what are some of the expectations around providing athletics for our students. So again, this is additional guidance that we will be utilizing as we embark upon developing our health and safety plan for our students. So I'm going to pause here for a second and just let you take a moment to review some of the information on this screen. And I'll pause here because one of the things that we've been trying to communicate in the district is that we cannot stop the spread of COVID-19. What we can do is put measures in place to mitigate the instances in which the disease or in which the virus will spread, I should say. So a lot of these public health officials actually are echoing those same sentiments, but I wanted to share this because I think it's very important for us to make sure that we are clear when we talk about what a school district is able to do and what we're able to provide going forward. So I talked about the fact that the governor did require for us to have a pandemic committee in place. We've been fortunate enough to establish that committee. We have a purpose and we have an anticipated outcome, which is to ensure that we have a response to COVID-19 and there's a clear and articulated way of us moving forward as a school community. The pandemic structure is broken up into 3 subgroups: curriculum, instruction, and assessment being led by Tim McKay, operations, which is being led by Jeff Cuff, and scholars and staff well-being is being led by Danielle Seward. You'll note that some of the names on this list are people from within the central office, as well as principals, as well as members of the nursing staff, as well as the counseling staff. So we feel as though that we have I'll just say a diverse group of individuals, at least beginning the process with us. Our response to the plan will cover the various aspects that you see highlighted here. We will specifically outline some recommendations for reopening for the elementary, middle, and high level. We will also provide information around for special education students, as well as English language learner students. We'll also highlight the roles and responsibilities for school-based staff because we want to make sure that it's very clear how all of us working together will support students in the post-COVID or in the reopening, if you will. There will also be information regarding transportation as well as food and nutrition services. The committee work sessions, there are goals associated within the structure. And so these are some of the goals that we're focusing on and making sure that we are developing our plans accordingly. You'll note here, one of the things that I've been sharing is that we really need to take a step back, I believe, and spend some time focusing on that last section on the health and wellness, the social and emotional learning area. Students will have experienced a lot of things since they left us in March, And we need to make sure that we're able to spend some time allowing students to express themselves and being able to address some of those concerns as well. So what are some of the options that we have? There are basically 4 overarching categories, if you will. One is that you remain or that you have school in a traditional setting where we're all in classrooms and you have plans in place to immediately respond if there's an outbreak. So that's one option you can develop. The second option is that all students will remain at home and we'll continue to do all online learning. The third option is you are looking at possibly a blended model where you are supporting instruction in classrooms as well as students being at home utilizing computers. And then one other option is all students being taught online with no plans to return to in-class instruction. And there are lots of, I'll just say, risk and disadvantages with that particular option. So with those 4 options that we have, what are some of our current planning assumptions? For students, all students will have a Chromebook for the 2020-21 school year. So we will be a one-to-one district. We will have Wi-Fi devices where needed. If that will be for families who may not have access to the internet. We are going to expect for students to be responsible for their work. And where possible, we will have peers remain in classrooms. And this follows some of the guidance that we've been provided. For teachers and staff, we are looking at everyone being in school on all work days. Obviously, we will consider underlying health issues or circumstances on a case-by-case basis. Our overarching goal is to make sure that we provide direct instruction when students are in school, and when students are at home, we will have synchronous learning going on as well. All staff will have a responsibility to support students while they are home, and in some instances, we are going to have to utilize specialist teachers, and they will push in instead of students moving throughout the building necessarily going to the actual teacher. There are lots of conversations around transportation, so we will continue to update the board accordingly as we continue to develop the plan. Under food services, breakfast and lunch, we're thinking will be served in the classroom. If there's a day that students are not in school, for example, if we have an A-day, B-day scenario, grab-and-go breakfast and lunch could be provided prior to the day at home so that we know that students will have food when they are at home. And then on the facility side, we are stating that all facilities will be cleaned based upon CDC and the governor's reopen plan guidance. So let's look at some of the options. And we have 4 options that we're looking at. And I will share with you that the principals were very open and candid about some of the options. And so we're just sharing all 4 of them. So the way that you would read this is that for an option 1, students kindergarten and grades 4 would have a traditional learning experience 4 days a week. They're in the building. Students in grade 5 and 6 would have a traditional learning day 1 day a week with synchronous learning 4 days a week, keeping in mind that our K through 4 students are our youngest students. Students in grade 7 and 8 would have an alternating A and B day schedule with traditional learning as well as synchronous learning. Students in grade 9 at Cypress, we would have an alternating A and B day schedule with traditional learning as well as synchronous learning. Students in grades 10 through 12 would have alternating A, B, C day schedule with traditional learning and synchronous learning. And the thinking is that for our SPED and ELL students, these students, because of their needs, we would want them in school on a daily basis to make sure that we're providing them with the most support that they would need. So that's just option 1. Option 2. Option 2 speaks to, at the elementary level, K through 3, alternate days of the week. So students in grades K through 3 would attend school on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday would be a teacher planning day. Students in grades 4 through 6 would attend school on Thursday and Friday. And again, Wednesday is still the teacher planning day. In grades 7 and 8, and the difference between option 1 and option 2, and this was actually recommended by our middle school principal, Mr. Dimmelsback, is that we split the 7th and 8th grade classes in half. So rather than have all 7th graders come on one day and all 8th graders come on another, this basically takes a class of 7th graders and a class of 8th graders and splits them in half. So on a day, you would have 7th and 8th graders, but it would only be half of the students in that class The other half of students would be being taught through the synchronous learning. And so that's how that would work for the 7th and 8th graders. In this option, 9th grade students are still on the alternating A and B day, and we're looking at splitting the students potentially by the alphabet. 10th and 12th grade students, there's no change in this option, option 2, and there's no change in the option for our special ed and ELL students. So I'll state this up front. Going forward, the only changes that you will see or modifications will be for the elementary level. So in option 3, we're looking at K through 4 students, as well as 5 through 6 students being taught on the traditional learning schedule 5 days per week, limited social distancing, and students would remain within one class throughout the day to avoid lots of interaction. Everything else stays the same for the other recommendations as I have previously stated for grades 7 through 8, 9, 10 through 12, as well as special ed. And then in option 4, it's another modification. Again, grades 7 through 8, 9, 10 through 12, and SPED and ELL remain the same.
This is 2.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Option 4, thank you. The difference is that for K6, we have all students come to school, but you alternate A and B day. So it's almost as if you're splitting the population in half, but you're serving all students. And so you alternate days, and we would identify which students would come on the A day and on the B day. We have to look at data and numbers and things of that nature. We've also talked about a staggered schedule. So 4 elementary schools could operate from the 8:30 to 2:30 time period, and 4 schools could operate 9:30 to 3:30. This could allow for teachers to do planning in the 8:30 to 2:30 schools from 2:30 to 3:30. And then in the 9:30 to 3:30 schools, the planning and support with teachers could happen from 8:30 until 9:30. So that's the main significant difference. I would share with the board members that principals of the committee, several of them supported this option. Again, there's no difference with options for there's no difference for the grade 7 through 12 in option 4. We have outlined a meeting schedule for work sessions, if you will, in June. We also have board business meeting that's coming up on the 22nd. The committee's work sessions you'll see here listed in July, that we would bring this back to the board for action on the 27th to provide another update on July the 20th. We're also asking that an advisory committee be established, and I'm going to speak to that in a moment. And that advisory committee would meet with the pandemic committee on July the 14th and on July the 21st. And keep in mind that the board has to take action on the health and safety plan, which would be presented probably on the 20th for us to take action on the 20th, or for the board to take action on the 27th. So we have been in conversation with the Environmental Control Solutions Organization, and they have been very, very helpful. And so we are partnering with them as we begin to develop the health and safety plan. I've had conversations with the YMCA. I will continue to focus on the Red Cross. They have a psychological assessment that can be taken by adults. And it's more about how we as adults help children. And it's a free assessment. I've actually taken it. And it was very, very helpful. And we are also partnering, obviously, with the Delaware County Intermediate Unit. And that's where superintendents come together and we talk about what other counties are doing and looking at some best practices. So those are some of the partnerships that we've actually created and are continuing to foster. Now, in terms of input and feedback, I want to make sure that we get feedback and input. So teachers actually have received the presentation tonight. It was emailed to every staff member in the district. There is an email address that individuals can respond to. So you'll see that their school reopening at wpsd.k12.pa.us. We've also established a parent survey, And this is the link here to the parent survey, williampennsd.org/reopen2020. We will be utilizing several venues to get that out to parents. Obviously, all of this information is posted on our website as well. And we're asking parents questions around their thinking about sending their students back to school, what conditions would need to be met, etc. And then we also want to hear from our students. And so they can submit that information to school reopening at wpsd.k12.pa.us. And then we're asking that our board of directors provide at least one name of members who could serve on an advisory committee. And that advisory committee would really be looking at our draft and almost final plan, giving us feedback and input. And with this, we're really looking for individuals who may have expertise in logistics, facilities, etc., just so that we could have another eye on our actual plan. So board members, that concludes my presentation for tonight in reference to school reopening. One of the things that I will share is that this is a draft plan. We're continuing to work as a committee, and we will continue to provide the board and the community with updates. One of the other things that I will be doing starting in the first week of July, I will be giving weekly updates on different venues via Instagram, Facebook Live, YouTube, etc., trying to ensure that our community understands where we're going and how we're getting there. Because I don't want people to be surprised in July or in August after the board has taken action. So I'm going to be quiet now and turn it back over to you, Ms. Huff.
All right, thank you, Dr. B. Coates. Do any board members have any questions for Dr. B. Coates?
Yes, I have a question for clarity on option 4. And the primary concern was, or the change was K through 6. It was an A-B day. Is Wednesday still used as a planning day for teachers or not?
And that date, in that option, we did not include it.
Okay.
So I have a question about families where there are students who need daycare and support for some of these A-B solutions where, you know, big brother always picks up little brother. Are there considerations for where families are home on A day that everyone's home on A day?
And so,
that nature.
I'm sorry. And so, yes, that was the reason why actually option 4 came up. Several principals indicated that they felt as though that if you had K6 coming on A day, they could then work individually to group families to make sure that if there was somebody who needed to be home, at least you had the whole group coming together and or not being in school on the opposite day. So that's how we actually ended up with that option.
Okay.
Excellent question.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
I have another question. In case there are things like families not being able to be together, you know, families that don't have siblings that pick up another, have we worked with some of our aftercare programs and before care programs about offering services for those days that students aren't in? Because some parents don't work, the parents work and they don't have anybody to work with them on those days where the students are home. Has anyone reached out to our local daycare and aftercare programs?
That will be a part of the process. The only, I've had conversations just with the Y, but we are going to expand that to reach out to some of the other local entities as well to see how they can support. And so the thinking is that as a committee, we're going to land on one of those options and hopefully start making some more plans around, more definitive plans, I should say, around one of those options.
All right. Thank you.
I have one. So in option number 4, correct me if I'm wrong, that appears to be the only one that has a split transportation schedule. Would the needs of not just our district, but other districts in terms of transportation have an impact on that?
It may have an impact. And that's just something that we'll have to definitely take into account. Transportation staff is a part of the committee. And so today, they are basically, when they left the committee meeting, they're actually starting to look at some different scenarios.
Thank you.
Any other board members?
Another question.
Oh, Ms. Cook, Henry?
Was there a preference that seemed to be out of the four options that the school, the principals, the schools were looking at?
I would say to you, what I presented to you for the middle school was the preference, as well as for the high school. At the elementary level, I would say option 4. You probably had more principals supporting that option. And one of the things I really wanted to make sure that we did as a part of this process was making sure that principals could support whatever it is that we will be doing, because at the end of the day, the principals are going to be doing, if you will, the heavy lifting, and we in the central office need to make sure that we're supporting them. So that's what I would submit to you. I would say option 4 probably resonated more with the majority of the principals who are on the actual committee.
Any other board members?
Hi, it's Joy. Just for clarity, Dr. B. Coates, you want every board member to give you a recommended name, or just a few of us to give you a recommended name for your advisory board?
I would like for every board member to give me at least one name, because I think that would help us to be, if you will, inclusive, and it will also help us to make sure we have people who are representative of each community that we serve.
And then lastly, if you could just give us a short blurbage of what you're looking for, so that when we go to talk with parents or talk with people that we think would be good fit, to let them know what you're seeking.
Sure. So what we are seeking is to have community members provide feedback on our draft reopening plan, specifically as it relates to all of the components, even as far as the health and safety plan. So we will be sharing all of our documents with those individuals. We will probably host 2 Zoom sessions for them, because we probably still won't be able to get together in person. So we will have Zoom sessions for those community members where we have dialogue. We would go through the presentation, present the information, present our plan, and then have some discussions and back and forth, and allow them to give us some guidance or some suggestions on potentially how it may be able to be improved.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. B. Coates, there's 2 questions in the Q&A. Do you want to hit them first? And then attendees, if you just use the raise your hand feature, we'll call on you also.
Sure. So the first question, it's anonymous attendance. I may have missed this in the presentation, but for A and B day for grades 9 through 12, does that mean teachers essentially have 10 classes at the high school level, or are all students coming in A and all off on B days, for example? If teachers have 10 classes, when are they giving synchronous instruction if they're teaching all day? Teachers would not have 10 classes. We are looking at basically some students being in school and some students being at home. So what would happen is that instruction is being provided, and we would have teachers doing in-class as well as synchronous. So teachers would have the opportunity for doing some planning and things of that nature. And we would continue to work with Dr. Lee on the actual scheduling, because we are going to have to do some things, I'll just say creatively, as it relates to scheduling, to make sure that our teachers are not overburdened in any one of these scenarios. The next question says, has there been any thought in having some secondary teachers give brick and mortar instruction and others give online only instruction, so parents can choose to send their students or keep them home based on their personal preference? That's an excellent question, and we will, from the parent survey, I firmly believe that we will be able to make some determinations as to what parents' preferences are, because those are some of the questions that we are asking. So we will definitely take that into consideration. And I think we also are going to have to remain flexible, because things may change by the time we get ready to implement. So have we talked about it in specifics? No. But I do think once we get the parent information from the survey, that will help us to gauge if we modify or change something else. But I think that's a great suggestion. And all of the committee leads are here on the Zoom call with me, so I'm sure they are capturing that information as well.
Dr. B. Coates from the chat, from Miss Tax. Dr. B. Coates, what will the planned time look for teachers in the middle school if we are doing online and traditional classroom learning?
Within the actual plan, there will be a schedule for middle school, and there will also be a schedule for elementary schools as well as high schools. And we're going to need to be creative with that schedule, keeping in mind that you are going to have some students at home and some students are going to actually be in your classroom. So that is a part of the actual plan itself. We have not gotten to that point as of yet because we have not landed, if you will, at least at the elementary level, on the actual model. Now we're ready to go into, I would say, probably starting on Wednesday, the scheduling. What do we think that will look like? I'm sure Mr. Dennelsback, knowing what I know of him in this short period of time, he probably already has a plan in mind. I know that I've had conversations with Dr. Lee, and she has also been working on some options. And I think Becky Vandenberg, who's also on the committee, shared with us today what some options might look like for scheduling.
Great. Any attendees? Thank you, Dr. B. Coates.
Sure.
Any other attendees have a question? You can just raise your hand. All right. I don't see any.
So Ms. Hoffman, if I could, I just wanted to give a shout out to the committee. I really do want to thank all of those individuals for the work that they've done this far. We have a lot more work to do, but I do want to thank them ahead of time.
Great. Thank you, Dr. B. Coates.
And board members, if you could get me your names, hopefully by this Friday, if that's not being too aggressive, if I could get a name from you by this Friday, that would be helpful because I want to go ahead on and reach out to those individuals and get those dates on their calendars.
Right. Thank you, Dr. B. Coates. All right. If we can move on to the rest of our agenda. And then after this, we'll be having a quick budget meeting. All right, here we go, agenda. Community relations. A1, new online registration process for the 2021 school year. I'm gonna read this because it's so important. Registration for new students entering the William Penn School District will be conducted online beginning Monday, July 6, 2020. Using the new online registration process, parents will be able to complete and submit their application and upload the required documents. The entire registration process will be remote and a parent will no longer be required to come into the office to register a child for school. The new online registration process is mobile responsive. It has easy to use forms that can be completed on any modern mobile device. The process allows for email communication between the family and registration department staff. Upon completion of the registration application and uploading of the required documentation, parents will receive a summary of documentation that has been uploaded and confirmation the application has been complete and is submitted. Children must be age 5 by September 1st, 2020 in order to register for kindergarten. If you have any questions regarding the registration process, please contact the registration office at registration@wpsd.k12.pa.us or 610-284-8005 extension 1234. Jeff, can you post a link to the agenda in the chat, please? I realize that might not have been done. There's a list of requirements. A2, Penwood High School Junior wins Congressional Art Contest. Congratulations, Madeline Key. If you don't know Madeline, she is amazing, and she was also in 2018 the Google Doodle Pennsylvania finalist, and she made the top 5. A3, William Penn School District to launch newly designed website. A4, reopening of buildings and summer hours. temperature check, face mask required, practice social distancing, and hours are 7:30 to 4:45, Monday through Thursday. On Friday, the school district is closed. A5, free meals for summer meals for children. There are the sites. We continue them straight through the summer with no interruptions. They move to Monday through Thursday from 11 to 1. And we'll have vegetable and fruits, a box of vegetable and fruits in a partnership between Common Ground and William Penn School District for our families on Thursday. I think that we've, Jeff was going to get me the number, but I think we've done around 100,000 meals since March 16th, 2020, the first day we've been closed. It averages around 2,000 a day. So thank you to our Aramark food staff, Eric and all his band of people that have made that possible, because it's been a lot of work. So thank you all. Does anyone have any questions on the community relations agenda?
Yes, Jennifer.
Yes, ma'am.
A4,
Yeah.
under the first, the temperature checks.
Yes.
Who would be doing these temperature checks?
Well, let me find out for you. Dr. Becoats, who does the temperature checks?
Right now, now that all of the central office staff are back, we are having the receptionist here do that. We will be asking most likely the secretaries to do that. If we run into challenges with that, part of the thinking.
I don't know what I don't know if he needs to go back out again. I don't know. Right now, I can't even deal with him. But he ate.
Joy, your mic.
Sorry.
Then we would have secretaries conduct it. We've also talked about making sure that the device is available at the entry point or at the within the office, so that if we're unable to have a secretary do it, the person will be able to take the temperature, because it's just a device that you just hold up right here to your forehead, and then the secretary at least will be able to observe that the temperature, or that your temperature is not above, I believe it's 100.4, that all the guidelines indicate.
Right.
Okay. The reason why I was asking is, do we need more personnel, like for medical, in the medical field, to do some of this? Because I mean, this is a heavy load. So is there a need to have additional nurses, additional nurse, or someone in the medical field?
It's my understanding, and I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, someone on staff, all of our schools have a school nurse. And so there would be a nurse who would be on site and available. We have not had specific discussions around with that particular entity or with that particular person do the temperature checks. But obviously the nurses are part of the process of developing our plan. And so that's something that we would consider. I'm never going to say to you that we have enough staff at all, especially in the area of health and safety. But this is where we are, and that's what I would be thinking, that we would continue to have discussions around that with our nurses to see, are there some other options? And again, we are partnering with some other individuals as a part of this planning to see what other supports may be able to be provided to our schools.
All right, thank you.
My apologies, I forgot. I was looking at the wrong agenda. A6 is the Farmers to Family program that I was talking about with Common Market. Although I believe the pickup is Thursday, but Jeff will correct me if I'm wrong. And this is available to all of our families as well as citizens of our district. No school-age child is required. So let me know about that.
Hey,
And
Jennifer, before you go on, in the comments section, Mr. Curry mentions we can use nursing students as well.
okay, thank you. And we also see Gina's that at least once a week, there's not a nurse that call in. We'll deputize. For my going out and having my temperature taken, it is not necessary that a nurse do it, but we'll see what school code requires us to do. All right, and I'm sorry, A7, important, summer credit recovery program. The William Penn School District will offer a summer credit recovery program for high school students. Courses are $200 a course with a maximum number of courses that may be taken as 2. Courses will be delivered online and monitored remotely by teachers. Google Meet and GoGuardian will be used for instruction and monitoring. Sign up is Tuesday, June 23rd from 8 to 3, Wednesday, June 24th, 9 to 4, and Thursday, June 25th, 8 to 3. And those are in the administration building. The summer credit recovery program will be held Monday, June 29th to Friday, July 24th. Students are required to attend orientation via Google Meet on Monday, June 29th at 8:30 a.m.
Hey, Jen,
Okay.
question for you. Just want to clarify. The Farmers to Families, that's going to happen on Thursdays, correct?
I think that was a late day change, Mr. Cuff.
The form, the agenda has it for Fridays.
I know, I understand. I think it was a late day. We're going to get some more clarity on that and we will get back with you.
All right.
Okay, anyone with questions on the community relations agenda? Any attendees with questions on the community relations agenda?
Yeah, you have a question. It says, what happens if a kid has a fever? What are the requirements for them to come back to school?
All right. Dr. B. Coates?
I'm coming. Right now, we will be following the CDC guidance as well as the guidance that we've gotten from the state. So we will be providing that information to families. There are some certain things we know that if you definitely have a temperature, we are asking you to not enter the building or to not participate in activities on that particular day. From what I've read, we're thinking that, if you come back the next day, you don't have a temperature, then that's fine, as long as you are not exhibiting any other symptoms. But that will be probably our first check. But again, we will continue to follow the guidelines that we've been provided, and that information will also be outlined in all of our documentation.
Okay, and in the chat this is Tamika Curry. Hello, everyone. Just FYI, many of the nursing schools in Philadelphia have been asked to provide new nursing students to assist with temperature screening for SEPTA CCP. So I'm thinking that William Penn could check with nursing students in Delaware County to assist.
We'll make sure that happens.
Yeah. And then Ms. Dungy, Colwyn does not have a full-time principal. How will this work without an administrator? We'll copy it and send the chat to Dr. B. Coates and his staff, so he'll have these questions. Did any attendees have any questions on community relations?
I have one more, Jennifer.
Yes.
Are we going to be taking temperatures of students in September?
Dr. B. Coates?
I'm sorry, I did not hear your
Wait,
question.
we seem to be going back and forth. Can we got a little off track. Can we stick with community relations and then we'll open it up for September questions at the end? Would that be okay with everyone?
Fine.
Thank you. I wrote your question down. Any questions on community relations? Okay. Next, Ms. Boykins, education, please.
Afternoon. B1, Holcomb Behavior Health Systems, 2020 to 2021 contract for SAP services. The student assistant program for risk students is mandated by PDE. Holcomb Behavior Health Systems provide assessment, consultation, screening, treatment, aftercare, group therapy services through licensed SAP liaisons leading our in-house terms. The cost for this service is $54,112, payable in 2 installations due September 2020 and January 2021. This represents no increase over last year's cost. Motion to approve the 2021 contract as described above, pending review and approval by district solicitor. And that concludes my agenda.
Great, thank you, Ms. Boykins. School board directors, do you have any questions on the education agenda?
Before anyone asks, I just wanted to say I did Dr. B. Coates with regard to the education committee about adding different things on with regard to the updates of not just like COVID, but how we're going to proceed. So I will be providing more updates on our our committee meetings as a whole during that time. I just wanted to state that. And also we looked at education meeting dates as far as do we want to have a consistent day? We were thinking about the second Wednesday of every month, but I'm just putting it out there so everyone knows that we have been speaking about having a consistent rotating day for our education committee meetings.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
School board directors, any questions on education? Hearing none. Attendees, any questions on education? Okay, Marissa, I see your question. We're gonna hold them until the end. I'm sorry, is that a question from an attendee? Is there a plan to add SAP liaisons?
Not at this point.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Mr. Wright is not present. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Personnel, Mr. Wright is absent, so I'll read it. C1, retirement. C2, resignation. C3, appointments. That's C3A. C3B is Pandemic Reopening Committee. C3C is Pandemic Reopening Medical and Nursing Services as needed. D, Title I Plan Development Leadership Team Meetings. And E, Summer Pre-Calculus Class. And physician for the 2021 school year, Dr. Singh. Dentist for the 2021 school year, Dr. Sonia Barbosa Ruiz. C4, sabbatical leave of absence. C5, military leave of absence. Thank you for your service, Ryan. C6, changes in assignment. C7, Act 93 agreement. C8, confidential administrative assistance agreement. C9, school safety officers agreement. Any questions from the Board of School Board Directors on the personnel agenda? Hearing none. Any questions from the attendees on the personnel agenda? Okay. Property Committee, Mr. Tom?
D1, extension of contract with Aramark Educational Services LLC A motion to move, to approve a 5-year extension to the contract between William Penn School District and Aramark Education Services LLC for management, maintenance, and custodial, custodial and ground services effective July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2025. This agreement is subject to review and approval by the district solicitor. That's it for.
Thank you, Mr. Tong. Any questions from the Board of School Board Directors? Any questions from attendees? Okay. Budget. E1 is treasurer's report. 2 is list of bills. E3 is investment depositories. E5 is the adoption of the general fund budget. Numbers will be filled in next week. And E5 is the 2020 homestead exclusion resolution. And E4 will also be discussed after this meeting with our budget meeting, after the committee meeting. Any questions from the Board of School Board Directors? Any questions from attendees? Okay. Ms. Hopkins, policy, no agenda items. Anything to share?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Okay. All righty. New business, there is a resolution for the electronic signature for use with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. What does that mean, Jeff?
It means Dr. B. Coates can log on as a superintendent and his signature. Same thing, we did it for Jane when she became.
Got it. All right, thank you. Any questions from anyone? First, school board directors? Okay, Ms. Lewis, you have an agenda question? Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question. I'm done with the, were we finished with agenda items?
Yes, but there are a couple of questions before yours if this is about September.
No, this is not about September.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is the, this week I attended the event that was put on from the school district and the unity statement that you all made from Lansdowne and Yaden. My question is that why is it that no one else, like if it's the William Penn School District attached to it, why is it that the other boroughs weren't invited to this?
So that event, I'll take that one, was planned between the borough councils of Yaden and Lansdowne. So they just told us when to show up. I can go back and ask them, but that was between the two borough councils. That was not a district planned event.
Okay, so that's what I'm curious about, why our district was involved in that.
My borough council president asked me to be present. I passed it on to the Yaden representatives, and that was that. But I will go back and ask them. But Lansdowne and Yaden have a long history of sharing infrastructure. So that's probably all it was.
Okay, because no one was told about it. And so that's why I'm curious about why everyone else in the, on the committee, because when our school district is attached to something, especially since we're talking about unity, my goal, I would like to see all of our school district involved as opposed to just 2 different people. And I did speak to people in the council and they said they didn't know what was going on that day.
So it wasn't our place to invite. Again, it was done by Yaden and Lansdowne Borough Councils, but I will certainly reach out to them and ask them about invitations to other boroughs.
No problem. And I'll let them know in the future that we need you to put that on our website as well for Yaden, right? Because you do our website for Yaden.
Yes, but I've not been instructed to do so.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll make sure that everyone is aware of that and gets that information.
Thank you. Any other attendee questions? Okay, Ms. Tax? Yes?
Hello, I put my question in the chat, but I just was seeking clarification. If students have a temperature one day, you're saying that they're sent home that day. And the next day, if they don't have a temperature, they can come back to school and not have to wait the standard 14 days of quarantine. Like, if they do have the virus or they are sick, can that not potentially spread just because they're not showing symptoms, even though they had a fever one day? Like, what's going to ensure that we're not transmitting it if that's the case?
Yeah.
Can I? Oh, was that?
Go ahead.
I just want to say, Ms. Tax, the CDC actually just put out a mandate with regard to a full understanding on asymptomatic transfer rates. So right now, if you go on the CDC's website, you will see that for asymptomatic, people that are asymptomatic, they cannot confirm at this time if asymptomatic transfers are possible. So in the beginning, the CDC first thought that. They said that asymptomatic transfers are definitely actually occurring, and we've seen it. And there is no backing to support that claim at this time. So if you go on their website, they have made changes to that, because currently we have no proof that asymptomatic transfer is possible. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, and
the other thing that I would just add is that although you may have a temperature, that does not mean that you have COVID. So I just want to make sure that those two things do not equal each other. So I just wanted to share that as well.
Exactly, Dr. B. Coates. They're also looking at, for instance, if a person has abundance of white blood cells, it could also spark for that temperature to rise as well. So that was something that they're looking at. Is temperature necessarily the most effective way, even when it comes down to sports as well?
So
we will provide further guidance on this in all of our documents and documentation as we prepare for the opening of school, so that it is very clear as to what our procedures will be.
correct. And two questions of the same. Our understanding was if a child has a fever, they have to be fever-free for 24 hours before returning to school with no meds used to reduce temperature. Would this still be the case?
Right. I don't see any reason for us to change that, but again, I want to have further conversation with our committee members and make sure that that still works. And I would probably also have some conversations with folks that we're partnering with on the CDC side of the house as well.
Thank you, Dr. B. Coates.
Sure.
Any other questions for participants? Okay. Ms. Tax, your hand is up. Do you have another question? Can you unmute Ms. Tax, Jeff? Ms. Tax, do you have another question?
No, I don't. I'm trying to take it off. I don't know how to take it off. Sorry.
Okay. Just go to the bottom list of the attendees.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to adjourn this meeting and move into our budget meeting. Don't leave. You guys have been amazing. Again, 47 participants for a third Monday meeting is amazing. So thank you for taking a part of your evening for us. Mr. Cuff, would you like to lead us into budget?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to get the other screen up.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Oh, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Bill Callahan had a question about temperature checks in September of students.
I withdraw my question. It's so far out to September that it's not relevant yet.
Got it. Thank you. All right, back to you, Jeff.
Sure, thank you. So I tried to keep it relatively short. I know we had several meetings where we discussed a lot of items leading up to this point. So I wanted to basically provide a quick recap where our total expenditures are right now and where our total revenues are. Right now, we have a gap of approximately $883,000 between expenditures and revenues. And if you scroll down to the bottom page, what I try to do is I try to give a summary of what were the major increases that brought us up from the prior year. You'll see that our revenues dropped down. I try to use the little arrow buttons just so folks could see. It might make it a little easier to follow. Because of our loss from property assessment, our revenues dropped down. You'll see also that, and I'll go straight to the revenue side first. Our subsidies and our basic subsidies, the major ones are our basic ed funding and special ed funding. That's actually a neutral increase from the year before. There was some dialogue, some conversation during the last meeting. They decided to keep that neutral, no increase. There was a slight increase in the next line down, which is the CARES BEF. That just happened recently within the last week. In essence, that increase there somewhat increases what we were supposed to get for BEF and SEF. We received that's approximately $500,000, but that money is actually designated for certain areas. So we just don't have the liberty to say that, okay, the money comes in, we can use it to hire another person or offset salaries. I believe that this money is designated, earmarked strictly for CARES and probably PPE supplies, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
Thank you. The other area where our revenues did increase is PSERS. And you'll see there's a PSERS mentioned on both sides, revenue and expenditures. Just a quick, what happens is, as our salaries increase, so does the contribution for our PSERS rate. But at the same time, we also receive an increase in our retirement subsidy. So there's an offset there. It doesn't equal out, but nonetheless, I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that we do have a slight increase in PSERS going into next year. On the other column, and it sounds like a broken record, one of the other expenses we have this year going forward will probably be the charter school costs. Transportation costs, we've seen we have a new contract going in. There's a slight increase with the contractual agreement, but one of the biggest sticking points that we see right now with the whole opening of school is going to be transportation. Just on the base cost, we're looking at an increase. We don't know what it's going to look like with the number of runs that we have going forward. Hopefully we can mitigate some of that cost and keep it constant or keep it relatively low or keep the increase relatively low. On the agenda tonight, we have an agreement for Aramark. One thing we were able to do with our new agreement with Aramark, we were able to incorporate that Aramark uses their purchasing power to buy a lot of our supplies and things like that. So in this agreement, what we did was we got our costs to go down and we avoided the cost that we had the last couple of years for exterminating services rolling forward. We discussed in our last meeting that IT upgrades, and it gets a little mixed here. The IT upgrades also obviously include some of the IT equipment. It's going to include some of the equipment for new cameras that we have throughout the district and some of our software that were have increases going forward. Major talking point throughout this process and probably for the last year and a half was our curriculum ELA. We have that included in this budget. Also special education, there were a couple issues that we talked about with contractual agreements with special ed, also with settlement agreements, and with our IU costs, there are increases there as well. Tuition costs for VOTEC and DC are relatively constant. There was a slight increase, but nothing of major measure. But still, we wanted to include this to let you know that the district still will be participating in VOTEC as well as DCC in the upcoming year. Our biggest increase going forward is going to be salaries as always. I mean, that happens every year, but in this year, the expenditure line item includes increases for all categories of employees throughout the district. And one area, last meeting, you saw that we had a larger gap in between. We were able to recognize some of the healthcare costs and savings being in the consortium. So that allowed us to drive down some of the costs that we have here and come up with a manageable or somewhat manageable difference between the revenues and expenditures. In the last meeting, I was charged with trying to come up with a total of our cost savings because of the shutdown with COVID. And again, this is an estimate that we have approximately for PCAs, substitutes, and transportation, and approximately a $975,000 gap, or gap, not gap, but savings rolling forward. So I know there was a lot of conversation of trying to hold down the line items for expenditures and the millage going forward. So this is one option that we have here that can help provide that solution. Before I go to the next page, are there any questions or anything I just said?
School board directors, any questions? Attendees, any questions? Okie dokie, go ahead, Jeff.
So the next page is more informational page. I know there's discussion of not raising taxes, but I want provide this information. This is information we provide every year around this time when it comes close to budget season. What this shows is how the first item that I brought up on the prior sheet was how our assessment of property has dropped. And you'll see that there's a revenue loss of approximately $239,000 before we open this budgeting process. But what this spreadsheet shows, nothing has to be done on this spreadsheet, but what it shows is if we did a percentage increase, what the total revenue would be. And just for discussion's sake, I'll just go with the first yellow highlighted line. In theory, if we increased our tax revenue by 1%, the end result for the district would be approximately $470,000 of new revenue over top of what we currently have. So you may say, what does that mean for me? So what that means is if my property was assessed at $75,000, which is the average of an assessment of property in the school district, it would be approximately a $35 increase over last year's tax bill is what that would result in. Again, just informational item I always provide it every year so everyone has a concept of what it is. I know we talk a lot of numbers, we talk a lot of concepts, we talk a lot of terminology, millage. Sometimes people aren't aware of what it means, but I wanted to provide this so people have an idea of what it means and what it looks like.
Okay, any questions from the board? Any questions from the attendees? So Jeff, Dr. Becoats, what will be your recommendation on the budget as it pertains to our agenda for next week?
Based upon my conversations with Jeff today, we'll want to move forward with what you see presented here, still up on the screen, which would mean that we would not be requesting an increase or in bills. It would remain the same, and we would be able to continue to move forward for the 2020-21 school year. Although that will be the recommendation, I do want to make sure that the board understands that with the dollars we have in fund balance and with our current Standard & Poor's rating, I think we need to be very mindful of the fact that we will probably have to ask for more money or increase the tax rate next year, or millage rate, I should say, for next year, because we are probably at bare bones right now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Becoats. Any school board directors have any questions?
Yes, Jeff, what's the fund balance total now?
Currently, our fund balance is slightly above $400,000, which is scary low.
Can you also share what's the current Standard & Poor's rating, Jeff, please?
It's a BBB+ with a negative trend. And so over the last couple of years, our Standard & Poor's rating has decreased. And the reason it has been decreasing is because of our usage of fund balance dipping down steadily.
There you go, folks. Any questions?
Yeah, some of Dr. B. Coates' recommendation broke up on me. Can Jeff summarize it for me, or you?
No tax increase this year. Don't expect it to last to next year. Is that a
Thank
fair
you.
summary?
That's fair.
Fair.
Okay. Jeff, that credit rating, do we have anything left to refinance? Will that affect us in the near future?
So we just did a refinancing last year. So right now we're probably not allowed to refinance for the next 2 years.
Okay.
What they typically do is when you refinance, that's when they go and examine your credit rating. Because we trended, they may go back again next year and look at it again and just do another evaluation. Typically, they do it every time you refinance. And because we don't have the ability to refinance for another 2 years, I don't expect them to go and look at it.
Okay. So we should make that a goal to get in better financial position, knowing that it'll affect our next time we try to refinance something.
Correct.
Exactly.
And that's typically one of their questions. Their questions are, what are you doing? How are you? What's your plan to strengthen up with the escalating mandated costs? That's typically how their questioning goes. They look at your finances over the last couple of years and they try to figure that out. And they ask a lot of the same questions of the school districts in Pennsylvania because they realize there's a lot of mandated costs, and particularly schools who are in close proximity of Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. But it's expanding now because they know that there's a lot of increased costs for charter schools and some of the other areas that are popping up more often. So it's expanding beyond our zip codes.
Correct. Anyone have any questions?
Yes. So what we're looking at now, let's see, it's my understanding, if there is 0% tax increase, so we're looking at possibly a 0 fund balance for the coming year. Is that reason?
Is it a possibility? It's a possibility, but I hope not. That's not where we're trying to go.
I know we're not trying to go there, but I'm saying if we don't have a tax increase this coming year.
Correct.
Yeah.
Your fund balance will still remain relatively low.
That's not good.
Yeah, the budget that you suggest does not use the $400,000 in fund balance, correct?
I wouldn't. But
no, the budget that you're.
Correct. It does.
Correct. Yes. To answer your question, yes.
Okay.
And Jeff, with a school district our size, what is the recommended fund balance that Standard & Poor's is looking for that we should be holding?
So I don't know that it's necessarily a percentage. It's that their concern was that ours was trending in a negative direction. Now, when I worked for the state and with the Auditor General, they suggested that you have anywhere between a 2.5% to a 5% fund balance. So with us, that would be closer to $2.5 million because we're basically $100 million budgetary operation. So they're looking for a $2.5 to $5 million fund balance. Now, that's what the state said when I used to work for them. Now, everyone remembers a couple of years ago that the PDE came out and started, wanting folks to draw down their fund balance. But you had certain districts who had close to $15, $20 million in fund balance. That's why they were encouraging them to draw it down. So I just think that typically I've always been told that at least you can handle 1 to 2 payrolls should be a good fund balance. So for us, that would be in the $3 million range would be a good fund balance to start off.
Okay, and we're only at not even $500,000.
No, sir.
No.
Right.
And, all right, and with everything going on, I don't think this is good year to raise taxes with everything that's going on. But then again, I don't know when is a good time to raise taxes anyway.
Yeah, so that's the age-old question, Jan. But my feeling is that this is definitely not the year. But hopefully there's a lot of things being spoken about legislatively. Unfunded mandates, charter school laws. I mean, we're going to have to get some chips to fall our way. We're going to be successful no matter what, but we could really use some legislative support on the expense side. But we're William Penn. We're going to figure this out. But a good conversation with your legislator is always valuable.
Right. I'm just going to reserve it for next time. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Mims, would there be any ability to let community members engage in budgeting? Absolutely. We did start this budget season with a call for community members, and no one volunteered, but next time I'll specifically ask you, no problem. And that was our plan this year, but it just didn't happen.
I think it starts out fine, and after like so long, it says your internet connection is getting unstable.
I'm sorry? Okay. Do any school board directors have any questions on budget? Attendees, do you have any questions on budget?
Hey, Jen, I just have one question, actually.
Sure.
I just had a question for Dr. B. Coates. When you were going over the, in our last meeting, you were just talking about the return back to school and saying that we were doing the one-on-one, having one-to-one laptops. I didn't see in the email where that came from. I just kind of wanted to know how are we able to do one-to-one laptop, because last time that we talked, and this is a great thing, but last time in our last meeting, it was said that we didn't have the funds to be able to provide the one-to-one. And I just maybe I may have missed something. I just wanted to know.
Yeah. So you missed your last board packet where Ms. Harbert and Dr. B. Coates spoke of what they're going to use the CARES money for, and that CARES money is funding the one-to-one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right.
Ms. Hoff, before we adjourn,
Yeah.
Jeff, can you take the share screen off, please? I just wanted to make sure that board members had the opportunity to meet Ms. Danielle Seward. And I believe this is her first meeting.
It is her first
I just
meeting.
wanted to make sure that Ms. Danielle Seward sees the board members. She is the Director of Student Services. And she joined us on June the 8th, I believe that was the date.
Correct.
And has hit the ground running, and we're just glad that she is a part of our team. But I wanted board members to meet Ms. Danielle Seward.
Welcome, Ms. Seward.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
We're glad to have you.
And I'm glad to be here. For me, this is a dream come true. I'm so excited about working with this team, and I've met so many amazing, wonderful people, and I'm just overjoyed right now, just as a professional. And I'm excited about being a community member and just being a part of this wonderful community. So thank you so much.
Great, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
We have a new board member too.
She was at the last meeting.
At the last meeting, yeah.
But welcome to Ms. Valerie Cook-Henry.
Yes.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Nice to meet you, Jan. We'll follow up.
Yes.
All righty, and Ms. Harbert, you have one meeting left.
She's going to tell you how many days and how many hours and how many minutes. That's our little
Dave.
trick.
And she marched 2.5 miles this weekend, too.
I did 2.5 miles in 8 days. Yes, great.
All right. Be well, everyone. We'll see you next Monday at 6:30.
Bye.
Bye. Good to see you, Wadia.
Bye.